Welcome to the Wired for Success podcast, your show for ambitious, mission-driven entrepreneurs who want to build million-dollar businesses without sacrificing their health, relationships, or happiness, who understand that in order to build their empire, they need a solid foundation, and that the more they are thriving, the more their business is thriving too. This show brings you the very best from science, self-development, and entrepreneurship to set you up for sustainable success. Hi, I'm Claudia Garbutt, the scientist turned mindset and high-performance coach for entrepreneurs, and I help you get wired for success. Before we dive into today's episode, let me share something that I found super helpful lately, because I think it could be really helpful to you too. If you've ever gone through a rough patch in your life, you probably know that those are the moments in your life when your familiar systems break down and the things that used to work for you often just stop working. Now raise your hand if you've experienced a situation like this. Well, you can't see me, but I'm definitely raising my hand. So far, this year has been a real challenge for me on so many levels, mentally, emotionally, physically. And it required me to get out of my comfort zone to test new strategies to stay happy, healthy, and productive. As you probably know, there are two main things driving your overall everyday experience, and that's your physiology and your psychology. And what I've seen happening a lot is that people who are going through a stressful time, they're often focusing on only one of those two pillars and are wondering why things don't improve. Well, the thing is, it's always a two-way communication between those two systems. If you neglect one, the other will suffer too. So whether you're going through a rough patch or whether you're looking to optimize your performance and experience in general, always make sure you're working on your mind and your body simultaneously. And I don't know about you, but I'm an optimizer for sure. And I always look for simple solutions that give me the most bang for my buck. For instance, stress can deplete magnesium levels in the body, and inadequate magnesium can in turn exacerbate stress and its effects. And you simply cannot meditate your way out of a magnesium deficiency. An effective way to help you get out of that negative spiral would be to supplement with magnesium to help your body regulate the deficiency and to integrate meditation or mindfulness to help your nervous system calm down again so that it can get out of that fight or flight mode again. Make sense? Not all forms of magnesium are equal or equally bioavailable though. To make things even more tricky, different forms of magnesium are also absorbed by different tissues in your body. So you have to make sure to get the right amount of the right forms of magnesium that support your overall health goals. And you don't want any unnecessary additives, fillers, and artificial ingredients. And that's why I love BiOptimizer's Magnesium Breakthrough. BiOptimizer's Magnesium Breakthrough contains the full spectrum of all 7 forms of the most bioavailable magnesium, each with its own unique benefits, along with vitamin B6 to support mental health and promote a healthy stress response. The combination of those different forms of magnesium help you support a lot of different systems all at once. Did you know that magnesium is involved in over 300 biochemical reactions in the body? Yep, you heard that right. From energy production to muscle function, digestion, heart health, sleep, and even mood and cognitive function. Magnesium plays a crucial role in keeping us ticking. I'm taking 2 capsules in the morning and sometimes another one in the evening before bed if it's been a particularly stressful day and I need to help my body calm down and relax, and it really makes a difference. But we all have to run our own experiments to see what works best for us. So why don't you give this a try to see what it can do for you? This could be the one tiny change in your routine that improves your sleep, metabolic health, cognition, energy, and performance all simultaneously to help you be your best. If for some reason you try Magnesium Breakthrough and it just doesn't work for you, you can get a full refund, no questions asked. BiOptimizers are so confident they offer you a 365-day money-back guarantee. If you'd like to test BiOptimizers Magnesium Breakthrough risk-free, head to bioptimizers.com/Claudia and use Claudia10 at checkout for a 10% discount on your order. Again, that's bioptimizers.com/Claudia and code Claudia10 to claim your 10% discount. And if you subscribe, not only will you get more discounts and free gifts, you will make sure your monthly supply is guaranteed. Without further ado, let's dive into today's episode. Hey everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Wired for Success podcast, where we talk about all things science, self-development, and entrepreneurship that help you get to that next level of success in your life and business. And my guest today is Dr. Mustafa Hamada, the head of product and science at Mendi, where they make neurotechnology accessible to everyone. By combining cutting-edge functional near-infrared spectroscopy and science-backed techniques, they aim to make cognitive training and assessment tools accessible and affordable to millions around the world. And I always love new ways of teaching an old brain some new tricks. So I'm really looking forward to learning more about this. Welcome, Mustafa, and thank you so much for taking the time to be on my show today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
I'm looking forward to this. So, Mustafa, let's start with a bit of personal background. What got you into science in the first place, and how did you end up doing what you're doing today?
So how I got into science, actually, it's as a person, I was always very inquisitive. As a child, it sounds very tacky thing to say, but I come from a family of academics, so it was sort of imbued to us as children to, read and explore and always question everything, really. And I got into the science because it's I really just love it. I can't really give it a very rosy story for it. I just a very inquisitive, curious person, and it seems to be very seems to be like the right choice for me. And it worked out very fine so far. So I'm really happy that I am where I am today.
Yeah, I think curiosity is something amazing. I think I got into biology because I wanted to understand how life works on every level. It was just so fascinating. Like, how does life work?
I think peeking into the law of physics and biophysics, neuroscience, it's incredible. I mean, it's a whole world to explore out there, really, and there's no better way to do it than through the scientific method. And working in institutes with equally curious people and intelligent people, and it's really a hell of a journey. As dysfunctional as academia is, and I'm sure you know about this, it's definitely worth the trip. I think I really can't think of a more sort of noble pursuit.
That's so true. Now, before we talk about more about what you do at Mendi specifically, let's talk about brain health in general. What are the main pillars of brain health that everyone should be aware of?
I find it always difficult to pinpoint exact, pillars and be very definitive about everything. I think it's very scientific not to be too definitive, but for me, the most important pillars for brain health, from my own personal experience, is really it's diet, it's exercise, and it's good sleep. More than anything else, for me at least, from my own personal experience, how I overcame the sort of devastating impact of a burnout is by really regulating my sleep. It wasn't really exercise or diet, but for me, it was really getting a really, really good night's sleep. And it's one of the reasons I have an Oura ring, because I like to measure my sleep and keep track of it. And I think and we're living in 2024. There is plenty of information. There's plenty of new technology that has sort of, in a way, contributed to partly to our sort of decaying brain health that we can use to really improve our brain health and our mental fitness. And one of them is wearable neurotechnology, such as Mendi.
That's so interesting that you mentioned that sleep was the first thing or the most important thing that helped you get out of the burnout. Could you share a little bit of what got you into the burnout in the first place, and then how you improved your sleep? Because I always find that sleep is the thing that's hardest to improve.
It was, and I think how many hours we sleep a day or per night, it really varies. I know there's what's out there is always 7 to 8 hours. Some people just can't sleep that long. I was one of these people, and I think I got this light sleep mainly from my father, because he never really sleeps that much. So to begin with, I was a light sleeper, and on top of that, how I got into the burnout is I was working, obsessively. I never really took breaks and sort of prioritized constantly working long hours between 12 to 13 hours a day, and not really taking breaks, not really, well, just stressing in general over things that I didn't really have control over. So that started to impact my sleep. I started to work until the late hours of the night, and then I had to get up at 6 a.m. because I had to go to the lab. And, in the beginning, you don't really feel it. But as you mentioned earlier before we started recording, the body keeps score. Is that the book?
Yeah, the body keeps the
Exactly.
score.
Yeah, exactly. You feel invincible in the beginning, but then afterward, it really hits you really hard. I think my body really took the lack of sleep took a toll on it. And the way I managed to improve my sleep is through, it's a multifaceted approach. One of them is when I had to really go to therapy because I had a lot of, I would say, if you want to call it issues to deal with. But I think my therapist helped me really frame some of the events that took place in my life that I was sort of ruminating over.
Right.
But also literally just force yourself to sleep better, like go to bed early. I start to take magnesium supplements, for instance. Start to exercise a little bit more, practice sleep hygiene, such as, I painted the room dark colors, for instance. I use these completely dark shades.
Yep.
Even the bedding and everything else was in sort of dark blue colors. Just trying to make this as dark as possible for me, because that helped me sleep. And slowly but surely, actually, my sleep improved. And nowadays I sleep between 7, I wouldn't say 8 hours, but 6 to 7 hours. I think it's a journey. It's something you really have to stick to. It's not just, one night's sleep is not going to help you recuperate from, let's say, a month of bad sleep. And I think the warning signs from this is I start to get, conditions or symptoms similar to ADHD. I couldn't focus on anything. And that is part of part of the what lack of sleep does to your brain. It literally shrinks it. And as a scientist, as a neuroscientist,
that's not a good thing.
Exactly. I'm fully aware of the consequences of a shrinking gray matter. So, and especially in the anterior cingulate cortex. So I really started to see these symptoms for lack of sleep, and my mood changed, my behavior changed, my demeanor towards people changed. And it was really, you hear about that you have to sleep better because you have to do, it helps you with your health and everything, but people don't like to change, and I think unless you experience it yourself, it's, so this is basically the story how I managed to get my sleep back on track. And it has been, it did really wonders for my health, overall health, mental health and physical health, because I think stress and a lack of sleep really takes a toll on your physical health. I had really bad knees for a long time, I think because of, high cortisol, high stress,
everywhere.
exactly, high baseline inflammation in your body. That literally ages you faster.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a combination of pretty much everything available to me to really improve my sleep. And I think everyone can do it.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I mean, I always find that sleep, even if I allow myself like the time, if I go to bed early and I'm really tired, I oftentimes find that as soon as I lie down in bed, I'm not that tired anymore. And then I just can't go to sleep. And I think that's a sign of it's just an overactive nervous system where we really have to work on resetting the nervous system, because you have reached a threshold where you have too much autonomic arousal, or whatever you want to call that, where it's really hard to turn that off again. And I actually find that exercise really helps me. So if I do a long run, for instance, and I've noticed, like, I always try to find the minimum viable doses or something, if you like, or the minimum effective doses. That's how you say it. And for me, 5K doesn't cut it. But if I get to a slow 10K, an hour 20, that's the sweet spot. That's where I find that afterwards I'm so much more relaxed, and it really carries over throughout the day. So I'm trying to incorporate that more into my weeks.
I totally agree with you. I personally hate running. I do run, but I really don't enjoy it. But what I've got into now actually is walking, long distance walking. So we're talking about 10, 15 kilometers. I find it to be way more relaxing for me. And I've seen the changes also physically.
Yeah.
Through walking rather than running, because also, I'm sure you do the same thing, like to listen to music or podcast. I can't do it while running. So I think it's you really have to find what works for you, just like you said. So it's and the right dosage and what time as well. And there's a lot of, actually one thing I forgot to mention is one thing that really helped me with my sleep better is cold exposure therapy. Yeah. So I'm one of those people who has this sort of cold therapy. What do you call it?
A cold plunge?
Pod.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. To take a dip in it in the morning. So I think it really helps a lot. And I was skeptical in the beginning because I'm always skeptical to any hype. But when I tried it myself, I think it really helped me a lot.
It
with
does
sleep
make
as well as relaxation. Exactly. Yeah. So it's I would also recommend that. It just, like you said, you just have to work on really what works for you, just to find that out. For me, it's like I said, darkened bedroom and therapy. And I'm sure there are many other things that works for different people because we're so different. Yeah.
We all have to run our own experiments, our N of one. What can we all do on a daily basis to support our brain health and well-being? Are there some other tiny habits that people can try out just to incorporate into their busy days? Anything else that comes to mind that you think could really make a positive impact?
I think what could really make a positive impact is, I think everyone knows this, is taking breaks. I think avoiding multitasking as much as possible, and also stay hydrated, at least during the hours when you work during the day. Exactly. Yeah. I think it's I mean, there's been research, neuroimaging research, that shows that multitasking literally reduces your IQ and shrinks the gray matter in the anterior cingulate cortex. And the brain, humans really have not evolved to do sort of multitasking, and your brain is wired to be serial processor. We basically can process one thing at a time. And for those who claim that, oh well, I can multitask, well, it's literally neurologically impossible. The architecture of your brain does not support parallel processing of two different tasks. You can switch between the two of them. So the best multitasker can switch really fast between the two, but never process two things at the same time. I think doing a PhD, you do a lot of sort of you work alone, right? You formulate hypothesis, you design experiments, and then you carry out the work yourself. I had a lot of time for myself. I didn't have to multitask, and I realized that when I switched tech and started multitasking, my focus span or my attention span really shrunk very, very hard. And I think it's related to distractions, really. You have Slack, you have emails, you have colleagues who writes to you, you have your surrounding might be very distracting. And I think this can really take a toll on your brain health, because again, when you multitask, you're not productive, you don't finish in time. Guess what happens? You get stressed, more cortisol in your body, and it's just this vicious circle. At the end of the day, you still get stressed, and stress takes a toll on your body. And I think people need to be really mindful of this type of environments. And there's many studies conducted by Microsoft, and I think Hewlett Packard as well, shows that multitasking really does not help with productivity. People think they're productive, but they're really not. You always do half-hearted job or half finished. And yeah, it's about really, if you so myself, I'm working from home, I try to engineer my environment not to have any distractions, try to time box my day as well. And yeah, it's try to stay hydrated and take breaks. and try not to sit down too much. I think this helps a lot, at least for the 9 to 5 type of job. But really, I think it's taking the breaks, be able to exercise, eat healthy. I think these all, I mean, the path to, good brain health does not really come from one thing. There's no silver bullet for it. It's a culmination of very good, very beneficial habits, and to develop those over time, they have a cumulative effect. So for me, what has worked for me, from my personal experience, I cannot really speak intelligently for everyone else, but it's basically taking breaks, be hydrated, and try not to multitask. I try really hard not to do that, because it's really bad for your brain. It literally has a physical effect on the brain. It shrinks it.
Yeah, that's like the cost to task switching is just too high. It's not worth that.
It really isn't. And gray matter, I mean, people need to know this. Gray matter does not regenerate. If you lose gray matter, it's not going to come back. It's very, very simple. The peripheral nervous system can regenerate to a certain extent, but the central nervous system, once it's gone, it's gone.
And I think the only time when kind of like multitasking works is if you do something that's like really on autopilot. Like you can walk and talk, right?
Yeah,
but
exactly.
You cannot focus on two things at the same time that you really need to focus on. Like if you focus on two different topics, that's bad. But you can do something where muscle memory kicks in, like walking or doing the dishes or something like that, and talking at the same time or listening at the same time. I think that's about the only times where multitasking or sort of multitasking works.
I think every time you're working on anything novel and cognitively tasking,
that's not working.
Try to do two things at the same time, it just simply won't work.
No.
Writing, like you said, writing or speaking, these are something you don't have to recruit no resources for. It comes to you directly. Exactly. So you can do that, like I said, walking and talking at the same time, because it's muscle memory. But working on a novel task or trying to learn something new, for instance, for that, you really need sustained attention, stable neural activity to support the desired behavior, which is a sustained attention. And to be able to think that, I'm going to learn something new at the same time on the side, write an email, it simply won't work.
It doesn't. What are some of the latest developments in neurotechnology that you're really excited about?
So I think neurotechnology, especially when it comes to wearables, it's one of the reasons I joined Mendi, is the incorporation of AI into these products, but also the hardware itself, whether it's FNIRS or EEG, are getting better and better. They're becoming more efficient. They're becoming more exact. Signal processing algorithms are also becoming very, very accurate and very optimized. And what I found really exciting, because a few weeks ago, we were at the Royal Society's Summer Science event with our partners at the University of Nottingham, Human-Computer Interaction Lab, run by Professor Max Wilson. And what I found really exciting is, we had a Mendi set up. A lot of people came by. I mean, with thousands of students and the public. It was an event open to the public, and I think there was a lot of sort of. You could see that the adoption of these type of technology will be widespread, but there's also some skepticism there. But I think it's really exciting here is that it was, for the younger generation at least, there was a lot of welcoming that, because they're born with the device like Fitbits and the sort of the digital environments around them. And this is, measuring the brain activity is nothing, it's sort of something they expect would happen at some point. But also what I think it's an emerging technology, and there's a lot of thinking and there's a lot of discussions around privacy, the ethics of it, what can be measured using neurotechnology in the workplace. Does it really measure, reads your mind, for instance? All these things need to be addressed. And I think other than the technological advance in neurotechnology, there's also this society needs to catch up to. because society grows sort of or develops linearly, whereas technology is almost exponential. So I'm just really happy, as someone who is pro privacy, I'm really happy to see that these discussions also happening on a governmental level, that we need to start really think that these devices, whether we like it or not, are coming to the stage, and we need to be able to set guidelines and compliance to, because for those devices, because our brain makes us, it's what makes us who we are, right? And I think we're sort of very protective of it. I really couldn't mind less if Apple, measures my heart rate. But I think when it comes to brain activity, there's always this little bit of reservation, sort of an instinct that you don't want to let anyone into read your mind, so to speak. I found that to be really, really interesting. And we're working closely with Nottingham University to work on the sort of the next stage of design frameworks for neurotech products, because I think you cannot really think the same way. You cannot really develop neurotech products with the same sort of framework as you have for a fitness app, for instance. Walk in 10,000 or 15,000 steps per day, that can happen for someone who is, let's say, healthy or neurotypical, and non-neurotypical individual who have ADHD or autism or something else. But when you use brain technology or neurotech technology, how your brain activity, your brain signature is very different. You can recommend 10,000 steps to everyone who is bodily able to walk 10,000 steps, and it's good for you. But how to train your brain if you have ADHD or autism or some form of if you're, or trying to choose the right words here. I really don't like to call it mental conditions, but if your brain is unique in its own way, for instance, it's not the same. It's really, you cannot use the same approach. And also because you have to think about what makes sense to track, what is a good progress metric, and so on and so forth. So we're working with the Human Computer Interaction Lab in Nottingham to really be at the sort of bleeding edge of research and design to develop better products, neurotech products.
Those are great points, and we definitely have to address all those privacy and security issues for sure. Now, what are some of your maybe favorite wearables right now, besides Mendi, of course?
It's the Oura Ring, actually.
So I'm really
a huge fan of the Oura Ring. Sorry?
You're really happy with that?
I'm very, very happy with it. I used to have an Apple Watch, and as much as I'm, people would say I'm an Apple fanboy, I didn't really like the size of the Apple Watch. I think it's a little bit too chunky. I think the majority of these wearables are a little bit too chunky. So for me, what was really important is that more than anything else than my keeping track of my exercise and resting heart rate and so on, I just wanted to measure my sleep, and I wanted to wear something that is, lightweight, and I don't feel it. I don't like to have anything on my wrist when I go to bed. So Oura Ring is, I love it. And also it's a European company, so I have more trust in it when it comes to privacy.
Yeah.
And it's also, I wear the polar chest band when I go running, for instance, to measure my heart rate. That's really pretty much it. I think the miniaturization of these wearables are, it's also very exciting. I mean, this is when I talked about the hardware, it's becoming smaller and smaller and more efficient. And I think Oura Ring is a good example of it. That is so so powerful, and yet so can sit around your finger.
So is the next step? Is the next step to just implant a chip?
I mean, I would be for it. I would be very, very willing to try it. Absolutely. But I mean, this goes into also wearable devices as well. Like we have Mendi, neurotech technology, but also you have Muse, you have other wearables that use EEG, for instance, and they're becoming, again, smaller and smaller. But also these wearable devices, especially for neurotech, such a device like Mendi, you cannot really wear them 24/7. I always wear my ring, for instance. So there is we do have discussion internally to build products that can, monitor your brain activity on a long period of time. So there's so we're working. So we're sort of, without divulging too much information, we're sort of working towards that direction at least.
Interesting.
Because this needs to become part of you as well, just like the Oura Ring, which constantly monitors your heart rates, your temperature, your oxygenation levels. We think neurotechnology will be heading in that direction too.
Yeah, I can see that. Now let's talk about the Mendi device. So I've had the pleasure of testing the device over the last few weeks, but for people who are not familiar with it, can you describe what it is and how it works, what it does?
Certainly. So the Mendi handband measures your brain activity, and an app guides you through the exercises. So when you use Mendi, you're engaging something called procedure learning, the exercise itself. You engage in procedure learning, which is learning through doing. So from your own experience, you have to, play the game itself. And just like learning to ride a bike or play an instrument, your brain gets better by doing these tasks and with consistent practice. This process of neurofeedback is predicated on neuroplasticity. So your brain's amazing ability to rewire itself and change and adapt to environment or stimulus. And with regular use, Mendi can help your brain form new connections, stronger connections, and make it more efficient and resilient, because what Mendi trains is your attention. It helps you, trains your focus. By, in the game itself, you commit to concentration to get the ball to move up. And when I'm sure that when the ball moves up, you get these stars, for instance, right? Exactly. So you collect those. And then, so what that is, that's operant conditioning in psychological terms. So this is a learning process through rewards and feedback. And when you use Mendi, you get a real-time feedback of your brain activity. As you improve, the app rewards you, encourages your brain to keep working in a positive way towards the behavioral outcome, which is sustained attention, a better sustained attention. So I would say, in a nutshell, Mendi combines procedure learning, neuroplasticity, and operant conditioning to train your brain for better focus and relaxation, overall better mental health. And I'm using these rather scientific terms on purpose because, Mendi is grounded in scientific research. And neurofeedback, the FNERS technology that we use, these technologies has been around for decades. What Mendi wants to do is to miniaturize it and make it more accessible to a wider audience. So it's in a nutshell, basically, that's how Mendi works as a product.
Yeah, and it's really fun. So the first thing that you do in a session is this sort of a calibration step where you use what I think Dr. Andrew Huberman calls the physiological sigh, where you have this double inhale through the nose and you have the
cyclic sighing. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So can you explain what happens during that calibration step?
So in the training flow, what you have is we've thrown in a breathing exercise called cyclic sighing, and I'm happy that you mentioned Andrew Huberman, because he published the paper where his lab compared different types of breathing exercises, and it showed, that paper in Cell report shows that cyclic sighing was more effective in bringing down heart rate towards your resting heart rate, but also reduce stress and anxiety. So the reason that we give users the option to do a breathing exercise before the Mendi session is we try to get you in the best mental state possible before you do the Mendi session. Because, as I mentioned earlier, it's procedure learning. It's a type of learning. It's a type of skill learning. And you need to be, if you're feeling anxious or stressed or aggravated, for instance, it's good to take 5 minutes to calm down before you enter the game. We try to create, so if I can digress a little bit, what the vision for Mendi, what the founders wanted to do is to really democratize the access to brain training tools. For the majority of, there's a lot of neurofeedback clinics out there, and it's not really accessible to everyone. We wanted to bring technology to people instead of bringing people to technology. So we wanted to make it accessible. You'll be able to do this from home. And I'll get back to why we're using it, why we're having this type of breathing exercise before the session itself. When you go to a clinic, you're more hand-led. You're in an environment that's not, it's a perfect environment for a neurofeedback training. You have a clinician that walks you through it. Our users, all 40,000 of them, they're spread out throughout the world. There's no way for us to control their environments and what distracts them and how they are in a given moment when they're using Mendi. So we set up these steps before the training itself to try to create the best environment possible, try to get them in the best, I would say, state of mind before the new Mendi session. So by bringing your heart rate and your breathing to a normal level before you do Mendi session, it will help you with learning with the neurofeedback exercise itself. It's the same thing. If you're stressed or anxious and you're trying to learn something new, it's not going to happen. It affects your learning. Exactly. Yeah. So but not only this, I mean, and what I said is that we use, for instance, operant conditioning, these tricks in gamification. We use that too. We're also working with Brain FM to bring the neural music to Mendi. So in the most, I would say the most immersive experience when using Mendi is you put headphones on, hopefully noise canceling, and then you do the session itself. You can listen to music it's a type of neural music that basically elevates low beta, helps elevate low beta in your brain while you do the Mendi session. So in a way, it's a way to lubricate the wheels as you're trying to learn. This has been very sort of popular with some of our users who have ADHD, for instance, or ADD-like conditions. This helps them in the game itself, because if you have ADHD, you have difficulties focusing to begin with. And having a neural music to sort of, push you along the way has been shown to be very, very helpful. We also use when the ball goes up and you have the stars, appearing. Exactly. That tone is called Shepard's tone. It's an auditory illusion, right? So it's an increasing intensity and then loops back. And the reason for it is to try and get you to get sucked into the game. We try to make it as immersive as possible. So we're sort of hijacking your attention, training it, and give it back to you at the end of the session. That's what we're trying to achieve here. And we're working on more immersive games and more variety for users. We're trying to also target games that are more fun for children, for instance, because children, novelty wears out quickly for children. Yeah. We try to keep this We try to keep this as immersive and as exciting and engaging as possible for children. So we're looking into building something similar to, Super Mario World, for instance, that you can go through steps in different worlds.
I love how you set people up for success there. Now, if we go back to the training flow. So once the session starts, what people are seeing on the display in the app is this small ball, as you said, and you have to try to steer it with your mind to get it to move up on the display. So I'm still not quite sure what's the best strategy to do that. Is it just the intense focus and attention, or how do we move the ball with our minds?
So I think it's if I can explain FNIRS first and then get to that exactly. So FNIRS stands for functional near infrared spectroscopy. It sounds pretty fancy, but it's actually pretty straightforward. Mendi headband shines a safe, invisible near infrared light into your brain. The light helps measure how much oxygen in your brain in real time, how much blood flow is in your prefrontal cortex in real time. This is important because the more active parts of your brains are, the more oxygen they need. So the more you recruit neural networks, the more blood that's required. So it's a proxy measure. So by measuring oxygen levels, the Mendi headband can tell which part of your brain is actually working really hard. And when you put the Mendi device on, and as you commit to focus on the exercise, the headband tracks your brain activity. You get instant feedback on your performance. And as you try to focus more and more, the ball will go up more and more, reflecting the constant supply of blood flow to the prefrontal cortex because you're engaging in something very tasking. Now we go back to your question, well, what does it take for me to sort of summon my focus? That's really hard to answer because
Mhm.
how we experience focus is extremely subjective.
Right.
How you focus, how I focus is very, very different. So there's no one type of approach to how can you commit to concentration, how you can focus. So what we instruct our users is to, first of all, not close your eyes, because then you would break the neurofeedback loop,
Right.
right? You have to have this visual
Yes.
feedback aspect, and it's also a part where you're supposed to try to have a calm focus, normal breathing rhythm. Try not to hack the signal, because we're measuring blood flows. Anything that affects your blood pressure or head movements really fast will affect your brain. I'm sorry, affects your blood flow. So yeah, we tell our users to have a calm posture, normal breathing rhythm, and just try to find the technique that works for you to summon your focus. And the reason the ball goes up to tells you that whatever you're doing now, keep doing that. So this is the whole visual aspect of the neurofeedback, is we tell you, what type of strategy works for you when you're trying to focus. So this
Because
is what this is what we tell our users, and it's been successful. Some people, for me, for instance, I try to have not to look at the ball. I can see the ball in my periphery, for instance, but I don't stare or gaze at the ball itself. I try to focus by trying to shutting out everything around me, because concentration is not just focusing. It's not a single point focus, but it's also a way to, you need to learn to shut out any distractions. So doing both has worked out really well for me. And when we surveyed our users, that's what works out for the majority of them. Some people like to just look at the ball and focus
that's
on
what I
just the
tried.
ball. Exactly. And it works. There's no wrong or right answers here. If you look at the ball and it works for you, maybe that's how you focus. And that technique eventually translates, the generalization effect of neurofeedback translates to your naturalistic environment, that you don't have to look at the ball to focus, because you've exercised that skill of sort of gathering your focus so many times with the ball, that you eventually, when you're home or at work, you're trying to read something or learn something new, it just comes to you effortlessly. So that's the beauty of procedure learning. It becomes almost part of you, that you don't have to retrieve it. It just clicks. You just
Yeah.
focus.
The
So this
autopilot.
is exactly, and I mean, it's sort of the beauty of this neurofeedback, is that when we say it's personalized, because it really is how the strategy to summon your focus really works for you. You get to explore that, what works for you best, and the app, the game itself will tell you when you're doing something properly, when you're doing something right, or this is what focus would look like for you. That's the strategy that works better, and you stick with that. And yeah, that's what we sort of imbued all these different features, from music to soundscapes to these stars, operant conditioning, to help you find that best strategy. We can only sort of guide you towards in that direction, but the true strategy that works for you, well, needs to come from you.
Yeah, what I found really curious was that it seemed to work best when I did like really long inhales. So
Mhm.
not the usual, but that makes sense because you're measuring blood oxygen in the brain. So a long inhale
Exactly.
would make all go up probably.
Exactly. Yeah. I think this is a type of I would, what we call signal hacking, if you will.
Yeah,
It's not
exactly.
about increasing blood flow. It's about being able to control your mind.
Yeah.
That's what we aim to do. That's what Mendi's neurofeedback aim, it helps you to do. Otherwise, if it's a matter of doing increasing blood flow, you can do a Mendi session upside down and let gravity
Yeah.
take care of the rest.
That's true. I mean, obviously, the end goal is not to play a mind game. So, you already mentioned that, but maybe for people to summarize it again. So, how does practicing with the device help keep the brain healthy, and what positive improvements can people expect? In other areas of their life.
I think that's an excellent question. So, one of the reasons that Mendi headband sits on your forehead, because we measure the blood flow in your most anterior part of your prefrontal cortex. So the frontal lobe is the last part to develop in the human brain. It's what really sets us apart from chimps and other lower and higher primates. And the prefrontal cortex is, and I'll be very careful here as a neuroscientist, it's sort of the seat of the executive functions, these umbrella terms for mental faculties such as decision making, emotion regulation, attention, context switching, mental agility. It's sort of this hodgepodge of neural networks that guide you through your day. And I think it's the place of higher cognition. And also, this is the beauty of the human brain, is that there's no way you can just train one thing and not have a spillover effect onto the other. There's no way you can say, oh, I'm improving my focus and next month I'll improve my working memory. Well, that's not how it works. If your focus improved, your working memory will do too. How the brain works, you use your brain for literally everything. A lot of people say, well, you use 10%, or some part of the brain is it's specifically for X, Y, and Z, but that's not really the case. It's when and most of these conclusions are sort of provided by fMRI studies, right, where you can see they engage in some task and they see part of the brain lights up. It just that's part of the brain that lights up the most, not the only part of the brain that lights up. So with Mendi, the game itself, how it's set up, is helps you to train your focus. And when you are able to train your focus, not only does your working memory improves as well, how you can hold information for a longer period of time before it's your cache, basically. It's your RAM memory, right? But also you literally rewire your prefrontal cortex. It becomes thicker over time, right? Because you rewiring your prefrontal cortex to be able to focus better. And when you focus better, you can actually process information better. When you focus better, you can actually learn things. You're not easily discouraged by not being able to solve problems or not being able to learn something new. So, and also the prefrontal cortex, a healthy prefrontal cortex with a healthy blood flow, has an effect on the amygdala. Now, the amygdala, and I hate to say this, is the center of the emotional center of the brain. It's involved in it, but I wouldn't say it's the only one. The prefrontal cortex has a top-down control over the amygdala, right? There's a baseline activity that inhibits the amygdala. And when you have a lower prefrontal cortex activity, when you have a lower blood flow, you sort of, in a way, unshackle the amygdala. And you tend to have this, reactions, or I would say, it's sort of overly intensive responses to harmless events. It's anxiety or stress. It's really, it plays a huge role in it because the prefrontal cortex is not as I would say well trained or fit, right? It's a condition they call hypofrontality. Mendi helps you when you train your prefrontal cortex, when you learn to focus better. A byproduct of that training is that you have a more efficient blood flow to the prefrontal cortex. So yeah, we measure blood flow, but that's to help you train your brain. But eventually, when you have trained your brain, your vasculature will change too.
Right.
The blood supply to your prefrontal cortex will be more efficient. So this is the aim. This is what you aim for. And again, to be able to focus is really be able to live. And you're a high performance coach. You work with entrepreneurs. It's all about focus. If you cannot focus, you're not going to be a successful entrepreneur. It really isn't. I mean, in a world where you're bombarded with information and things are going at such a fast pace, you need to learn things on the go and internalize it and be able to abstract general rules from the information that you've learned. How are you going to do this without a proper, well-trained focus?
Yeah,
and attention
is currency.
It's a mental currency, and I'm sure there's a lot of books out there that talks about the attention economy, that how our attention is being hijacked and monetized, and be able to gain or be able to have more agency, or get back the agency over your attention is it's really a luxury. It's sad to say this, that something that's so inherent to you is being hijacked and you have to sort of claw it back, but that's the case. I mean, this is what we're trying to do as well. And you can be healthy and use Mendi. You can have ADD conditions or some other conditions that you can also use Mendi for too. what they all have in common is training the prefrontal cortex, your executive function. It's basically your sort of your cockpit of the brain. It's, you know.
And there's something that I'm really curious about. So yesterday I came across some really interesting work by neuroscientist Norman Farb. And that shows, I think he did some brain imaging work there. And he showed that people who are prone to depression, in what happens in their brain is actually that the frontal part of the brain, so mostly the prefrontal cortex, and all the areas that are important for reasoning and mental map making and stuff like that, they are actually more active than the back part of the brain that's more implicated in picking up signals from our senses. So my question would be, the Mendi device, as it is currently, is designed to train the frontal area of the brain, right? But couldn't we use the same type of neurofeedback technology in a modified device that kind of trains the back part of the brain to help people stabilize their mood and maybe use this technology to overcome depression?
So the back of the brain, you're referring to the visual cortex or the cerebellum?
So I would have to look into the studies exactly, but it's that basically the parts of the brain at the back and the back of the brain that are important for picking up the signals from your senses and from the body, because that's basically what's shutting down in people with depression. They are too much in their prefrontal cortex.
I would love to read that paper if you can send it to me later. I have not come across this, but let's just talk about the excessive activity of the prefrontal cortex, right? More excessive activity in the prefrontal cortex isn't necessarily better, right? So you can have, for instance, anxiety. You can have high functioning anxiety and OCD. That's high. That's a high activity of your prefrontal cortex is hyperactive, and actually using Mendi for that will give you a raging headache. We've seen that with our users, right? Because we use upregulation neurofeedback. However, neurofeedback, it's not just for upregulation. We can use neurofeedback to downregulate the prefrontal cortex. So if you have, in these conditions where you just mentioned here, that their prefrontal cortex is overly active, they have depression, it's overly active, there is a way we can actually, it's again, through game design, be able to bring down the neural activity, train the brain to really bring it down into more sort of Zen state, if you will. So there is absolutely a way to do this. And I'm cautious not to be the person who, we can definitely, neurofeedback and these wearable devices can definitely help individuals to manage some of the symptoms and whatever conditions they're currently experiencing. But I think for others, you really need a more, a different type of interventions.
Sure.
I think wearable devices, neurotech wearable device, can work as an adjunctive treatment to, adjunctive to other treatments. For instance, if you have ADHD, you can use the Mendi device as well. But you can be one of those who have ADHD but have to take Adderall or Ritalin, for instance. So absolutely, I mean, there's to go back to your question, there's Aspen Neuroscience, for instance. I'm sorry, Aspen Neuro Clinic in both LA and in Colorado that uses EEG neurofeedback to help with anxiety and depression and ADHD, but also performance, for instance. So absolutely, there's a way we can currently, and we are currently using this for treat to a certain type, to treat certain type, and to a certain extent, some conditions like depression and anxiety. And with Mendi, at least, if I can plug in Mendi again, is that we're working to, currently we have an upregulation neurofeedback game, but we're also working on a downregulation neurofeedback game, because the ultimate goal for attention is to go between sort of a closed focus and an open focus, right? And be able to go find yourself in the middle, but able to go between these two states. Open focus is being aware of your environment. You're not drifting. You have a sort of a, I like to call it soft type of focus, right? And when something happens, you can immediately go to the closed focus, direct your attention to it, solve whatever it is. Let's think of in pilot terms. You're a fighter pilot, for instance. You're flying, you have an open focus, you're monitoring your dashboard in the airplane, and then something beeps, right? You direct your attention to it, you go immediately into the closed focus. You fix it, and go back to this Goldilocks type of level between focus, open focus, and closed focus, because closed focus is metabolically very expensive. Humans haven't been developed to focus for hours intensely on anything. And yeah, so I think it's but this is what neurofeedback does, right? It helps you, gives you more control over brain regulation, right? Whether you go to closed focus or open focus. But also, let's say when it comes to depression is a mood disorder, or when it comes to anxiety, one thing I've had issues with is rumination.
Yeah.
Right. And being able to switch my focus from these ruminating thoughts to something else has been very, very helpful for me. And I did that by, part of it, practicing my attention, working on my attention, being able to make sense of situations, reframe it. And I'd like also to mention that, so when it comes to let's say anxiety and depression, without being too clinical about this, a lot of the coping mechanisms for these conditions requires that you rationalize part of it. And to do that, you need to be able to think clearly. And to be able to think clearly, you need to have a better focus. Because let's say you're in a situation that unfolds. It's a very intense situation, emotional situation that's currently unfolds, and you're processing information in real time. Having a proper, very fit prefrontal cortex to be able to manage this information that can be contradictory or whatever it is, right, requires a certain cognitive currency and focus. Because to process information properly, you need a good attention span. So coping mechanism requires, a healthier cognition in your prefrontal cortex. So to develop, again, I sound like a broken record, but to develop coping mechanisms, you really need a healthy prefrontal cortex.
That's always a good thing.
Exactly, that's always a good thing, and it speaks to the complexity and then the messy complexity of the prefrontal cortex. That how you have all these spillover effects, and because you use your brain for everything, right?
Yeah.
And how sustained attention, how training prefrontal cortex tend to have really a broad spillover effects, because with Mendi, we don't like to train. The Mendi device doesn't really train just focus. We like to think that it trains a high level executive function, right? We're not the design, the product itself is not sort of designed to solve a very specific singular part of your brain, but rather help improve your executive function. And when you improve that, you improve many parts of your brain. But of course, there are some clinical conditions. There are clinical depression, for instance, that requires medications. There's a underlying neural there's a physicality to it in some cases, and neurofeedback might not always work. But for some conditions, I do believe that it has a huge potential.
I think it can be a great tool. And I love that your model combines the neurofeedback with gamification and just behavioral science in general. It seems like a wonderful way to create really meaningful and lasting change. In your opinion, what are the keys to successful habit formation that we can utilize here?
That's such a good question. And I've had multiple discussions with designers and friends about what really makes a habit. And I cannot say there is one way to do it. I'm sure you've heard of Atomic Habits.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, it's a very popular book, although I do have my reservation regarding some of the concepts in that book. But I think what really makes a habit is not really just one thing. That's why I'm also very, very cautious to be too much into the nudging concept, right? I think nudging, sure, works, but it's very limited. And I think the reason for this is because it's really hard for humans to change, to do something new. And incorporating a habit into a routine life or a routine day, it's not as easy as just, it's not, it's really, I get lost in my own thoughts when I talk about this, because I really do not have a straight answer for it. I mean, I can give you, I can reference, popular psychology books, but I can also reference published research that sort of not debunks it, but really challenges those concepts. So it's the ones that you find in Atomic Habits, the ones you find in other popular books.
Lots of them.
Yeah, exactly. I think what we try to do, at least with Mendi, is to really communicate, because we need to have let's just, I think it's easier if we let's just take Mendi to how to turn Mendi into a habit, for instance. I think it's more it's an easier concept to talk about. What we try to do with our users is to really inform them and educate them. Why is it important for you to train your brain? It's through education, right? So we do something we call internally neuroeducation. We need to educate their users. Everyone knows that you need to go to the gym and work out for, on your muscles, on your back, and do squats and whatnot to, age more gracefully or more healthier as you get older, right? But I feel the brain is not getting the same attention. So we try to educate our users. Why is it important for you to train your brain, and how Mendi, in our case at least, helps you to achieve that goal? But at the same time, we also have to add what could be described or argued to be sort of dark design patterns. Same thing that Duolingo uses. We use gamification, like daily streaks, working on a feature called daily streaks to emphasize the importance of practice.
I think that's a lot of it is loss aversion, right? You just
exactly, which is arguably is reasonable people can have a reasonable discussion whether this is a dark pattern design, but we're tapping into these biases. We're tapping into these the loss aversion humans have, for instance, but for a good cause. We're trying to train their attention. We're not harvesting it. So we're using behavioral design elements in our app, and also gamification. We try to make the game enjoyable. The reason we made it, you can have neurofeedback without a game at all, but we wanted to make it immersive. We want to make it fun, and everyone loves to play games. So I think I'll be completely honest with you and say that I do not have a recipe of what turns a habit. Like I said, I can give you, a roster of books that claims they're good in developing habits, but also I can give you an equally long roster of research that speaks, that challenges these concepts. But what we try to do at Mendi is use behavioral design. Everything has to be scientifically validated, and we also use gamification. I think gamification can come a long way, and I think Duolingo, for instance, really wrote gives a master class on how to gamify the experience. I think it's more fun. I use Duolingo myself. So we try to learn from, the big boys on how they did it, and then try to follow a more successful examples of how to develop to develop Mendi training into a habit with our users. And we genuinely want the best for our users. I mean, it's one of the reasons that the Mendi device doesn't lock to an account. So a family of 4 people can share one device. We want to make this accessible. We try to live up to our values to make neurofeedback more accessible. Otherwise, we could have just locked it to an account, and you won't be able to share it, and we'll be able to sell more. It's very simple, but we chose not to do that because we made a goal for ourselves, and that is to help as many people as possible. And that's one way we can do it. So I think I think so too. I really do. I think so too, because we really try to reach as many people as possible and trying to, help people. Most of our users really generally buy Mendi because they try and solve a problem and try to help them feel successful, and also help them to be successful in those. Maybe I have a friend of mine who used Mendi and she had anxiety, for instance, and she loves it. I think she has a daily streak of 1,000 days or something like this. So it's exactly. It has helped individuals, and if it helps 2 people this month, then it's a win for us. I mean, it makes a difference in those people's lives. And this from a product development point of view, we try to help the user do what they came to do, help them feel successful in that journey. But also from a design perspective, we're also fully aware that we are not the users. So we work closely with the users. We try to understand what helps them use Mendi, on how to use Mendi. But also at the same time, we have a very scientific approach to product development. We experiment a lot. And it's the mother of all innovation, really.
Yeah, and if I can maybe share from my personal experience, because I always find that education is one thing, but what trips people up is just the logistics. It's just really finding a way to incorporate it into their days. That's what trips people up. It's not that they're not motivated. It's not that they don't know what to do. It's just
Yep.
they don't know how to do it, how to incorporate it. And what helps me personally, for instance, the best thing I've ever done is like creating a habit stack. Habit stacking is the one thing that works for me to introduce new habits. And it's the easiest thing once you've got a basic habit stack. Like, you know exactly what you do. You get up, you brush your teeth, you have your morning coffee, and whatever it is, you have those first set of habits. And then you just layer the new habit in there. And then it's just like, once I'm done with that, I'll start doing this. And then you can sort of sandwich it between the other habits that you've already developed. And that's, for me personally, the easiest way to adopt a new habit. And it really works.
And that works for you, right? So it's also, but this is also the challenge from a product development point of view, is we don't know the lives and the circumstance of our users. It's hard. I mean, each individual will have a different day. Some people start their day at 5 a.m. Others start it in the evening. Maybe they're evening workers. We don't really know. So one of the reasons we're so close to our users, because we really try to understand, at least get a glimpse into how they use Mendi, when they use Mendi, what their lives are, be able to understand the demographics of our users, and using that information, pull it in together to be able to help them to incorporate Mendi as part of their day. Of course, we work with athletes as well, and that tends to be the easiest, because athletes, all they do is, I mean, their entire life is predicated on discipline.
Yeah.
So when you incorporate a device such as Mendi, and you tell the athletes that this will help you perform better, makes you focus better, makes more sort of put your head in the game during a race or during a game, whatever it is, and whether it's baseball, football, or whatever, they immediately develop an emotional attachment to it, because their entire goal is to be better every single day, right? To perform better, to exceed their previous records. So for them, it's very much easy to incorporate that into their lives, right? Into their routines. And also, a lot of athletes have coaches. So you also have this helping hand, a reminder, a human, sort of a human. Exactly. It's a human reminder, tells you, did you do your Mendi sessions this morning?
Mm-hmm.
You know, hold you accountable. What we try to do with Mendi is to develop ways and strategies to get the users to hold themselves accountable to their training with the help of the app. We want to develop a product that understands our users. And to do that, it's a challenge. I'm not going to say we have the recipe for it, but again, experimentation, working closely with our users, and try hard to really understand people, understand the human mind, and how we can better develop a product, because it is challenging, but that's part of the fun.
Sure. For sure. Now, where can our listeners find you online if they would like to learn more about you or Mendi, or just, connect with you?
I'm available on LinkedIn. I don't really have a website of my own.
That's fine.
But Mendi, you can visit Mendi at mendi.io. That's Mendi website. And that's you can also find us on Instagram, on YouTube. Yeah, these are our channels. Also, I think we're on Twitter or X as well.
Awesome. Mustafa, thank you so much for talking today and for sharing all your tips and insights with us. It's really been a pleasure having you on this show.
Thank you so much for having me. And it's been a great hour talking to you. I really, really appreciate it.
I enjoyed it too. So take care and talk to you soon. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Wired for Success podcast. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. That's a fantastic, easy, and zero-cost way to help the show grow. Just use the link in the show notes and make my day. Want more? For quick, actionable tips and insights to guided meditations and a side of biohacking, join my inner circle and get access to exclusive subscriber-only content. Again, just use the link in the show notes to join the tribe. Thank you for your support and see you on the other side. Take care and talk soon. Bye.